everyone, and welcome back. That was the really fantastic solo to the song Return to Serenity by Alex Skolnick and 80s thrash metal band Testament, coming in as my number 37 most underrated, underappreciated, and or unknown guitar solo of all time. To tell the truth, in guitar circles, this is a pretty well-known solo, but otherwise, this song and this solo, well, not so much. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking if you do happen to know this track. You're doing another rock ballad solo. Didn't you just do a video last week and play your top 5 rock ballad solos, and now you're doing another one? In my defense, while the song Return to Serenity is very much a hard rock ballad type of song, this is very much a metal solo, and one of the highest caliber for sure. In context, I guess one could call this more of a metal ballad rather than a rock ballad, I suppose. I mean, there are passages in this solo that are just blindingly quick and extremely difficult to play. And today, we're going to give Alex Skolnick some love and showcase this solo of his, arguably his most famous. Alex Skolnick, in my opinion, doesn't get the love and attention he deserves when compared to his metal guitar contemporaries of the time. He was arguably one of the most talented, technically gifted, and fastest metal guitar players of the whole late 80s, early 90s thrash metal scene. With much of these skills taught, ingrained, and acquired from one Mr. Joe Satriani, who mentored and taught Alex Skolnick as a teenager in Berkeley, California, alongside the likes of Kirk Hammett, Steve Vai, Larry Lalonde of Primus, before Joe Satriani himself would go on to find great success as a solo artist once his teaching days in California were behind him. But with regards to Alex Skolnick, sadly, much of the attention these days in guitar circles and elsewhere goes to the likes of Kirk Hammett, Dimebag Darrell, Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, etc. Skolnick has been somewhat forgotten in this mix of great players where he most definitely deserves to be, in my opinion. But like his band Testament at the time, he and his band more or less played second fiddle to the big four: Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. You definitely would hear the name Alex Skolnick a whole lot more nowadays were he the guitarist back then for Metallica or Megadeth or Anthrax. That I guarantee. While enjoying a certain level of success within the whole thrash metal scene at the time, Testament were pretty much on the verge, but never quite managed to break into the big four level of album sales and touring success, and thus, turning the big four into the big five. With 4 very good to great thrash metal albums under their belt as the early 90s were rolling around, it was time to shake things up a little bit and try something new for the band. See if they could put themselves over the top and join the likes of Metallica, Megadeth, Pantera, kind of at the top of the metal food chain. Unfortunately for them, and unfortunately for us metalheads, it was generally considered a change for the worse. The album that this song stems from, 1992's The Ritual, their 5th, would see the band mellowing to some degree, easing up on the thrash, writing more melodic metal fare, possibly looking to cash in on some of the success that Metallica was enjoying with the Black Album, which had also toned down the band's trademark thrash and had exploded in sales as a result by this point. Unfortunately, it would have the opposite effect for Testament. It turned a lot of their fans off the band and subsequently picked up very few new ones. Though they would produce their only charting hit on the rock charts with this song, Return to Serenity. Alex Skolnick would leave the band after this album in frustration, and as a result, the core of Testament's classic lineup was broken. He would seek out other projects and collaborations over the following years, while rejoining Testament a number of times on and off over the past 25-30 years or so as well, both to record and to tour. This direction shift with the band, with the Ritual album and its lack of success to some degree, was laid at Alex Skolnick's feet by most, as he was somewhat tiring of the strictly thrash metal scene with regards to his playing and his songwriting as well. He wanted to produce more melody-driven metal. And as a result, the Ritual's feel, tone, and songwriting was very much quarterbacked by Alex Skolnick in the studio, much more so than anyone else in the band when compared to their earlier releases. But in hindsight, despite a bit of backlash at the time, it's really a great album, a great melodic metal album that the band produced here. But unfortunately, unlike Metallica, who gained millions of new fans with their more melodic turn on the Black Album, and they lost a few, like myself, but Testament fans wanted none of it. And those millions of melodic metal fans now turning Metallica into one of the biggest bands in the world in 92 and 91 didn't jump on board with Testament. A real shame. Regardless, with his interest in the speed thrash metal scene and his guitar playing somewhat waning in the early 90s, Alex Skolnick would actually go on to study jazz and earn a degree in jazz guitar as the 90s grew to a close. And he actually formed a jazz trio on the side of his metal projects. A very diverse and a talented guitar player, to say the least. Now, as I stated earlier, this solo in Return to Serenity is generally considered one of his very best. Some absolutely gorgeous melodies sandwiched between some incredibly fast legato runs. It's a very tightly constructed, beautiful and musical solo of the kind that just continues to build and build and build as it progresses along. And like I said, all of these lovely melodies strung together with some dastardly hard and fast legato phrases. A technique, no doubt, well covered in his teaching by his mentor, Joe Satriani, who, as we know, is an absolute master of the legato. These legato runs in this solo are just nuts, and I don't even know if I'm playing them correctly. I mean, all the notes are there correctly, but there could be easier ways to play it, I think. However, this is how I figured it out, and I stuck with it until I got it up to speed. Really tough stuff. Anyway, that is all I've got to say about Alex Skolnick and Return to Serenity. Great goddamn solo. Love it. Hope you're well in your little guitar corner of the world, and we will see you next time. Maybe next week. Take care. Cheers.